Hello and welcome. This is View from the Top. I'm Modele Sharafa Yusuf. Having women engaged in every facet of development is no doubt needed for accelerated development, and that seems to be why the gender issue is big across the globe. There are indications, though, that even within academia, where many of the lofty ideas about bridging gender gaps are hatched, there exist gaps between the sexes in admissions and in employment. Yaba College, founded in 1932 in Yaba, Lagos, was the first tertiary educational institute in Nigeria, and it was the precursor of the University College Ibadan, which was started in 1948. Until 1985, when Professor Grace Alile Williams became the first woman vice-chancellor of a Nigerian university, there had been no women in the very top position in academia. And since then, there have only been about 16 others. One of them is Professor Sidi Osho, pioneer vice-chancellor of Afeba Balola University at Do-Ekiti. She joins me on View from the Top today, and I want to thank her very much. Thank you, Professor Osho, for joining me.
Thank you very much, Modele, for inviting me.
Let's get you further acquainted with my guest before we start our conversation. Sidi Osho, formerly Sidi Ando, was born on 19 August 1959. She got an associate degree in agriculture from Delta College, United States, a BSc in food science from Michigan State University, a master's in food processing and technology from the Ohio State University, and a PhD in food processing and technology from the University of Ibadan. Professor Osho worked with the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, IITA Ibadan, and Olabisi Onabanjo University at Goiwoye. She was appointed the pioneer vice-chancellor of Afeba Balola University in December 2009 and ended her tenure in January 2014. Professor Sidi Osho is currently with the National Open University of Nigeria. She is also the president and founder, Sidi Osho Foundation. Professor Osho, there's so many women CEOs, so many women directors, so many women board chair, but you are one of only 16 or so women who can claim to have been vice-chancellors. It's a very exclusive club, eh?
Well, I guess in Nigeria for sure. Not many women. When I was vice-chancellor, we were like 5, and among over 120 men. And you see yourself not as female, but you see yourself as a professional called to service, to manage an institution, to drive the vision, to drive the mission of the university, and make sure that you touch lives, you have impact on the students, on the stakeholders as a whole in the university administration.
You know, a couple of years ago, Professor Olabisi Aino of the Center for Gender and Development Studies in Ekiti State University recommended the development of a gender equity policy for each university. Do you share her sentiments?
Yes, I think it is very important, especially when you look at, where we are coming from in terms of gender, and the Beijing conference, where the affirmative action has insisted that, every government, every structure, every opportunity should be given to at least 30% of the board should be women. And when you look at it, I think it is relevant in the scheme of governance, in the scheme of economic development, that because women play an active role, they're very responsible, they drive visions, they're entrepreneurial. And so I think the Nigerian government should also key into that, looking at opportunities to give women position of leadership, because when you give women position of leadership, you're also giving, an opportunity for role modeling. From experience, most women that have been allowed to lead usually never fail, because they are always trying to compete with the men to prove that they can do much better.
Our education, with about 170 million people, now seems to have been built on archaic foundations, incapable of solving present problems, let alone future challenges. How much do you agree with this?
When you want to define education, you need to look at it from the standpoint of intellectual development and how it affects development of a community, of a state, or a federation. And it's an intellectual freedom. You can imagine when you are not literate, the opportunities that you lose. But when you are conversant and you are educated, you are conversant with laws, you are conversant with regulations, policies, and you can fit into any society. And so education is a must. To me, it's a human right, and it's a right for everybody to be educated. The Parastatal National Open University of Nigeria was set up with that premise that everybody and anybody, regardless of your ethnic group, your color, your religion, you should have a university degree.
Is the kind of education we're getting capable of solving the problems that we have as a country?
Well, that's a dicey question. The application of education is important. For instance, applied knowledge is what will solve the problems of the society. And like I always say, well, the private-driven economy will develop the economy of Nigeria. And so when a lot of people are educated through the systems, whether state, federal, private, they are going to go into the labor market and become entrepreneurs, developing the system.
So I have heard some argue that our educational system places too much emphasis on paper qualification.
Paper qualification is the definition of what defines what you are qualified and capable of doing. If you enter any establishment, the first thing they're going to ask you, what are your qualifications? That defines you. Now, the next stage is, what are your skills? The skills are what Nigeria is now adding to the curriculum in tertiary education. The skills, enterprise development, leadership skills, to give you a wholesome package as an individual.
What do you think of the scrapping of the post-UTME?
Well, you know, the post-UTME examination came as a result of people not having confidence in JAMB many years ago. I remember that some of the examinations that JAMB conducted then were doubtful. People would do JAMB exams, and then they would score maybe 250, and then they would do an exam in the university, which is the post-UTME, and that same candidate would score less in terms of, you know, the percentage. And so people started doubting the quality of the examination delivery of JAMB. And over the years, universities have, you know, decided to draw their own benchmark of standards. And so they came up with the post-UTME exam. But when you now look at what the policy government is saying now, that, you know, it is scrapped, my concern is that it's not the scrapping, but at the meeting of the Vice Chancellor, the benchmark is 180. When I was Vice Chancellor, the benchmark for the JAMB score was 180. It means that the standard has not improved. It has been stagnant. And when we talk about improvement in the quality of education delivery, you expect that JAMB standards should be raised. But what I see that will come out of this is that every university will set a higher standard. And so they're going to say, well, for you to be an engineer, you have to have between 250 and 260 to be able to have access to those programs. For you to be a medical student, the bars and standards will be raised. And I'm very sure that is what's going to happen even in the private university. If the government is saying that they are scrapping it, JAMB also needs to prove that these examinations are credible. In this last exam, there were lots of concern about the paper, the computer-based tests, and that, you know, some people were, it was reported in the news that a lot of students were complaining that, they were locked out of the computer examination test before they finished. And so JAMB needs to, to prove to the world that they are credible and they would do examinations right. And you also want to see that universities admit students that are qualified